This is
Make it plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
Ladies and gentlemen, another very special guest with us here on Make It Plain. During the Obama administration, he served as counselor and domestic and economic policy director for then Vice President Biden. He also was appointed by President Barack Obama as executive director of the President's Council on Jobs and Competitiveness, and led the federal government's efforts in the economic recovery of the city of Detroit. So he is eminently qualified to talk about what we're going to talk about today. I will also mention that during the 2020 presidential campaign, our guest served as counselor to President Joe Biden during the 2020 presidential campaign. Prior to that, he was an executive vice president and head of corporate responsibility and community relations at Key Bank. He is currently the 19th Deputy Secretary of Commerce. Deputy Secretary Don Graves joins us on Make It Plain. Welcome, my brother. How are you?
I'm great, Reverend. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
It's a pleasure to have you. I want to start this way. I was talking to someone the other day getting ready to buy a new car, and they were looking. I said, well, you either want to go in the electric direction, I would suggest, or hold off. They said, why? I said, well, I think some things are about to change, and there's going to be more of a mandate for everyone to move in that direction. I had that conversation last week. You all must have been eavesdropping and decided to pull that trigger, huh?
Well, you no question about it. Absolutely, and I'm glad you're thinking about electric vehicles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, full disclosure, my son is playing summer league baseball. We made a quick trip to Miami. I'm telling you, man, it was like every other car in Miami was a Tesla. Now I know Miami's in a different income bracket than probably you and me, but still, I took note of it. Just how many people were driving those cars. So tell us about the president's announcement today and what we have in store.
Well, thanks so much. The president's announcement about the electric vehicle support is just in keeping with the administration's commitment to clean energy and clean technology infrastructure. And it's also something that's a significant component of the infrastructure plan that I know you have heard all about. We need to build an electric vehicle infrastructure. That's what the infrastructure plan is all about. We need to electrify thousands of school and transit buses across the country, because if we build the infrastructure, we make the investment from the federal standpoint, we can bring down the cost, to your point, of making electric vehicles affordable for every community, so we can also make sure that people are breathing clean air and that we're reducing our over-reliance on fossil fuels.
Yeah. So the goal would be half of the auto industry's sales would be electric by 2030. That's the real goal, correct?
That is correct. Zero emission vehicles. Half of all new vehicles sold by 2030 will be zero emission vehicles.
And the auto industry was a part of this announcement as well. They're standing in support of this, correct?
Absolutely, no question about it. The auto industry is supportive of this. The domestic auto industry has actually made the commitment. They made the commitment at the beginning of our administration, building on what they had done during the Obama administration, to really focus on developing electric vehicles, both autos and trucks and commercial vehicles, because they know that's the future of their industry, and they have to compete around the globe. It's not just here, it's around the globe. So they've made that commitment, and it's going to have a significant impact on all of our communities as well.
More MIP after this message. I believe I've already seen a statement by the head of the United Auto Workers. And let me mention, UAW, part of the AFL-CIO, we all, as I'm sure you do, Mr. Deputy Secretary, lift up in our prayers and remembrances the president of the AFL-CIO, our friend Richard Trumka, who has passed away.
I am completely heartbroken over his passing. He is one of the not just the leader of the movement, but he's one of the giants to support a longtime tireless worker and support of the American worker. And someone I considered a friend. I worked with him significantly over the years. So it is a loss certainly for the family, and we give our respects and condolences, but it is a loss for the country.
Yeah. And Lord knows Richard continued in the tradition of the coalition and alliance between the civil rights movement and the labor movement. He helped to keep that alive during his tenure, and we're so appreciative of that as well. But as I was saying, the president of UAW, I believe, was quoted as really bringing it home, saying, if we are going to compete as a country, this is necessary, moving toward electric vehicles. And so ultimately, Mr. Deputy Secretary, this also, when we talk about jobs and infrastructure and economy, all of this goes together, doesn't it?
You are exactly correct. In order for us to have a more competitive economy, a competitive nation, we need to focus on investment writ large. So it's not just the investment in electric vehicles. It's everything that the president has had in his Build Back Better agenda. It's making the country more resilient, building for the jobs of the future, making certain that we are producing high quality jobs, family sustaining jobs, the types of jobs that so many of our communities haven't had before, because we can't go back to the way that we were before the pandemic. That certainly didn't work for the communities that you and I have spent a lifetime focusing on. We have to build a more resilient, inclusive economy, and part of that is getting past this infrastructure bill. We have to get this bipartisan bill passed hopefully in the next few days. It's the largest investment in public transit. It's the largest investment in passenger rail. It's the largest investment in bridges and highways since the construction of the interstate highway system. It's the largest investment. This is important. It's the largest investment in clean drinking water and wastewater infrastructure, something that you and I know has been a massive problem in the African-American community. 10 million homes right now with lead service lines and pipes. So it's going to make certain that our kids who are in our homes and in our schools have safe drinking water. So all of those things need to be done, and I think they're getting done in just a matter of days.
More MIP after this message. It's not a metaphor to say this is where the rubber hits the road, because I'm sure we all can remember in the early days of the climate change movement, when it wasn't even called climate change yet, it was called global warming. We've come a long way, because this now finally is the government doing some of the things that were talked about those decades ago. And it just shows the impact of the climate change movement, and also the seriousness of the Biden administration, and how important your role is, having been involved in these types of things in your life. This is where it really matters, when you can actually go into government and do what's best for people in this regard, rather than it having been ignored frankly, in the last administration. They fought it. They were against it. So, I mean, this is where the activism is made real in the government.
That there's no question about it. I mean, we all know that unless folks who actually understand the lives, understand the needs of the communities are in these positions, you're not going to end up with the type of policy decisions and change that's necessary. You talk about climate and the environment, and I think about how the climate crisis and extreme weather impacts communities of color. You think about the flooding, you think about weather-related events that hit our community harder and more frequently than other communities. But you also think about the type of investment that this can lead to in terms of access to high-speed broadband that's affordable and accessible across the country. As you know, there's a stark divide in America right now on digital issues.
Yeah.
And Black families are 9% less likely to have high-speed internet than white families. Latino Americans are 15% less likely. So we need this bill passed to make sure that all those Black and brown kids who haven't had access are able to access affordable high-speed internet. I hear time and time again that parents are making the hard choice of which of their kids is going to be able to access their education on any day when they're stuck at home trying to work remotely. We should never be in a place where a child in this country, any child, doesn't matter if they're white, black, brown, anything else, they shouldn't be put in a position where they can't get access to school because they don't have broadband access. So this is what we need to do for our communities. It's all over the place. We have to take the steps now.
Folks, the Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Don Graves, our guest. I do need to mention before we go, he is a fellow Hoya. So we appreciate that. But also, folks, a bit of history here. His 4 times great-grandparents actually had a business in Washington that stood at the site of where the Department of Commerce is now. Speaking of transportation, they had a horse and buggy taxi business in Washington, D.C. And those 4 times great-grandparents went on to own a premier hotel blocks away. And that son went on to also become one of our nation's first Black patent holders through the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So a bit of Black history in the family as well. So it's funny how things come back around. You were actually in the building where your great-grandparents once had their business.
Absolutely.
In the space, I mean.
It is as personal as it gets. Every day it comes home. I drive in, get out of my car, and remember that I'm walking literally in the steps that my ancestors walked, who were slaves before they started their business. They were free, started a business, and were successful in the very same place I come every single day.
Wow.
So it goes back to understanding the community, understanding the lives of the people who live in their communities. That's what we have to do every single day, is make sure that we remember where we come from as we make these decisions.
And forgive me, brother, if my ignorance, this may already be the case, but have you written, or is there a book about your family?
Well, my father is in the process of writing a book about it. There are a number of documentaries and stories out there about the Wormleys, or James Wormley, the son who wrote the patent, who actually took care of Presidents Lincoln and Garfield. It's a storied history, but again, it just reminds you that we're all so close to our community and our people, and we have to remember that in everything that we do on a daily basis.
And when you think about it, those years are not that long ago, folks. It may seem like a long time ago, but it's not that long ago. And as we're talking about climate change and electric vehicles that don't contribute to carbon in the atmosphere, our guests' great-great-great-grandparents were doing that with the horse and buggy. There were no emissions. So we'll come full circle. Deputy Secretary Graves, we do appreciate you and all the work you're doing. And folks, this is the way it's going, the way we're headed. It's what's best for us all. So get ready. And it's good to know that the auto industry and the unions are fully on board with this. Deputy Secretary Graves, so good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us on Make It Plain.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.